Hi guys, my name is Nonema Tigela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I just want us to go through because it's the recess and everything. But let's just do back in the day when it comes to the evidence that is in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. But today we are going to start with the IO. We'll go to other people and stuff. But let's start with the IO. Okay, Brigadier Gininda. Okay, so if I were a judge, I'm not the judge, but if I were the judge, in fact, I believe any other sober judge would do this. Ne? So let's get into it. If I was a judge in the sense of me, we're not talking about Judge Rotam Khwatle, we're talking if I was the judge. Okay. Now, if I were the judge, I will have parts of Brigadier Gininda's testimony that I would reject immediately. Because what do you mean, son? What do you mean, Sana, that this is part of evidence? Excuse you? Do you think I'm nuts? Never. Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Noni M Podcast. Today, we are going to do a serious legal deep dive live into one of the most controversial aspects of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. If I were acting or I was sitting on that bench as a senior judge with decades of experience, let me say, decades of criminal trial experience, there are certain aspects of Brigadier Bongani Gininda's evidence that I would approach with extreme caution because it's Gininda. It is Gininda, my lord. Oh, that guy. Excuse you. And in this video, we are going to break down exactly why I would be using extreme caution with his testimony. Now, this analysis is not about personalities, okay? Don't come here and be doing your own things. Nah? Now, it's not about attacking anyone. We're not attacking anyone. This is Mroni Matikela saying, if I were in that bench, okay? It is about one thing only, whether the evidence presented before court can withstand judicial scrutiny, all right? Because in criminal law, suspicion alone is not evidence, Gallo. Never. It's not evidence. Assumptions are not evidence, and police theories are certainly not evidence. Okay. Now, only proven facts can convict. Now, let's get into it. First things first, the Nongoma Case Foundation. Sana, that I can. I wouldn't even consider it. Me as a judge. Especially after listening to Kuman. Never. The first issue immediately raises alarm bells is the reliance on the Nomongoma case 16310 of 2018. During testimony before court, serious questions emerged regarding the true nature of this docket. Okay. Evidence from Lieutenant Colonel Kumalo suggested that this docket related to firearm and ammunition charges and not murder. That alone will send me Gesana, because what do you mean? These ones never talked about those charges. They spoke about a murder charge. That is problematic on its own. I'm not Judge What. I'll be Judge Matikela, and that will be me. All right? Now, ask yourself questions, okay? This question, actually. Ask yourself this question. If an investigator uses a docket as the foundation for pursuing a suspect in a murder case, but the docket itself does not support that narrative, what happens? The entire investigative foundation becomes questionable. Not just questionable, very questionable, because what do you mean? As a judge, I would ask, was the accused genuinely linked to this case through lawful and verified evidence, or was an incorrect investigative route followed? That would be me. If the foundation is shaky, everything built on top of it becomes vulnerable, in my view. And that is exactly why defense counsel repeatedly attacked this issue. You would remember, starting from Gomezo, he attacked this back then in 2023, 2024. Oh, he attacked it. I don't know if you guys do remember that. Now, because in law, Once the foundation collapses, the structure built up on it may also collapse. That would be me when it comes to the Nongoma case. All right? If you were a judge, what would you do about the Nongoma case saga? Because Sana, there is a lot that is going on that is very wrong there. Secondly, the lawfulness of Bongani Ntanzi's arrest. I would have a problem with how he was arrested. I would have a problem with how he was arrested. The second major concern involves the arrest of number 2, Bongani Ntanzi. The defense has consistently argued that Ntanzi was unlawfully arrested or effectively kidnapped. That is what in a nutshell, especially Umgo. Now we are hearing that thing that was being said by Umgo from Ramsipile Gesana. Yes, we are hearing it a lot from him. In other words, not in these exact words, but he says it in other words, but the meaning is the same. Yena Mngomezulu said it in these words directly, okay? Now, whether this allegation is ultimately proven remains for the court to decide, okay? But from a judicial perspective, allegations of unlawful arrest can never be ignored. Do you know why? Because the constitutional rights are involved in that situation. Do you see the stories that Mukhane and Gininda told us about the arrest of Ntanzi? Oh, Sana, after speaking to Khumalo or listening to the testimony of Khumalo, this would be very problematic for me. I would form ukuthi ukidnetchiwe lo mfana. Lo mfana lo ukidnetchiwe. Now, South Africa's constitution protects every person against arbitrary deprivation of freedom. All right. A court must therefore determine, was the arrest lawful? Was proper procedure followed? Were constitutional rights respected? Was the judicial was there judicial oversight in all of this? Okay. Because if the arrest itself was unlawful, the consequences become serious, Kesan. Oh, they are a lot and they are very serious. All right. Now, any subsequent confession, any point out, any statement, any evidence flowing from that river of unlawful arrest, from that unlawful conduct, from the police, may become tainted very fast in my view. Because what do you mean you kidnapped someone? In a case that is not making sure, that is not making sense. You have this case number, that in case you say it's the Nongoma case, but Nongoma case says ammunition and firearm, unlawful firearm possession. When you call it a murder case and you say nothing about the other 2 charges, no, I would have a problem as a judge. I would literally have a problem with that. Okay. Now, for me, there is nothing else that you can say after I realize you could time. No way. Hell, no way. That would make sense after that when it comes to Bongani Ntanzi. For me, I would say you used this opportunity to get Bongani Ntanzi to where he is today. So when he says he was forced into confessions, I would believe him. I would believe him, Sanalam. I would believe him. And that brings us to one of the most important legal principles in criminal law. The principle known as the fruit of the poisonous tree, Kesana. Simply put, if a tree is poisoned, the fruit may also be poisoned, because if Bongani Ntanzi was kidnapped, unlawfully arrested, anything that he said there, he's right. He was scared for his life. Yes. Thirdly, the confession issue now. Perhaps the biggest legal battlefield in this trial concerns the alleged confession evidence. A confession can be extremely powerful evidence, but only if certain strict legal requirements are satisfied. The confession must be freely made, voluntarily made without undue influence, made by a person in sound and sober senses, and made without coercion. The moment credible allegations of intimidation, kidnapping, assault, threats, or improper investigation or improper influence arise, a court must investigate thoroughly. So for me, after hearing from Ukhumalo, all of these things, I would apply them, because what do you mean? What do you mean? Do you understand for Nongoma case? Nongoma case saga would let me into being very suspicious of all of these things, okay? When it comes to the so-called confession, because for me, coercion will exist. Voluntarily will not exist. Freely made, not exist for me. I would be like, sound and sober mind or sober senses, they won't exist. You were scared. You were threatened, in my view. That's what will come to now. So all of that, because now, what do you mean? Now, yes, a judge cannot simply accept police testimony at face value. Courts have repeatedly warned against unquestionable or unquestioning accepting confessions as evidence. So I would use that opportunity, because what do you mean when they get these things before and then you expect me to accept what you said? Now, history has shown that false confessions do occur. I would have that in mind very fast. And this is why trial within a trial proceedings exist. Now, I would be like, yes, I accepted the confessions. I wanted to hear what's inside. Listening to them now and listening to what these people that are, I would be like, no, yeah. Now, if I were a judge, I would insist on overwhelming independent corroboration before relying on such evidence. Without corroboration, I would exercise extreme caution. Do you know why? Because nothing from Danzi's so-called confessions that matches what was said by the people in the house, what was said by Zungu himself. I would have problems. 4, disputed witness statements. That's another drama. That is another drama. Another major problem, or another major concern concerns witnesses, witness statements allegedly made by individuals such as Zondo, the Zungus, and Selani Butelezi. The problem is simple. A statement is not automatically true merely because it appears in a police docket. The witness must confirm it, the witness must adopt it, and if the witness denies portions of that statement, the court cannot simply ignore that denial. When a witness says, I did not say that, I do not know that part, that is not what I told the police, the state carries the burden to prove otherwise. If that burden is not discharged, the disputed portions become unreliable. As a judge, I would not convict any accused person based solely on disputed and uncorroborated statements. Because when it comes to these statements, everybody's saying the same thing. So why do we have 5 to 6 people saying that? No, I never said that. In your statements, no, I would have a problem with them. These people were supposed to be your witnesses. Now they are all denying. Break up over. That would be me when it comes to this. Do you understand? Number 5, investigation versus evidence. I would have a problem with this. Here's why. One of the dangers in major criminal trials is that investigators sometimes become convinced of a theory. Once investigators become emotionally invested in a theory, confirmation bias may develop. Evidence supporting the theory is embraced. Evidence contradicting the theory may receive less attention. Courts must guard against this danger. That would be me. I'll be so much on guard when it comes to Gininda. A criminal trial is not about proving investigators right. It is about discovering the truth. And at this point, from what I've already spoken about, there's no truth. This means that every piece of evidence must be independently tested. The court cannot simply accept it because the investigator or the investigation or the investigator officer believes it. Therefore, it must be true. No, that for me, it won't fly. It won't fly. The evidence must speak for itself. This evidence in the Senzo is silent. All the evidence in the Senzo is silent. Now, number 6, corroboration is everything. I have not come across with the state case where things were corroborated, never. but I have come across defense witnesses corroborating each other. I have come across that. The golden rule in criminal law is corroboration, phone records, DNA, ballistics, location data, independent eyewitnesses, financial records, electronic evidence. These are objective forms of evidence, and all of them are failing in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. All of them, not one. All of them, they fail. Now, the stronger the objective corroboration, the stronger the case. The weaker the corroboration, the more dangerous it becomes to convict. As a judge, I would ask a simple question repeatedly. Where is the independent evidence supporting this allegation? Because allegations alone are never enough. Okay? Now, finally, as a judge, I'll do a judicial finding. If I were delivering an interim judicial assessment, I would say this. Any evidence based solely on disputed statements, questionable arrest procedures, or unsupported investigative conclusions would be treated with extreme caution. Those aspects cannot safely form the basis of conviction unless supported by reliable independent evidence. At the end of the day, criminal courts do not convict on suspicion. They convict on proof beyond reasonable doubt. And if reasonable doubt exists, the benefit must always go to the accused. That is not favoritism. That is the law. And that is how justice protects every citizen. Now, thank you for watching. What are your thoughts when it comes to all of this? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you believe the court should rely heavily on Brigadier Geninda's testimony, or should the court demand stronger corroboration before making findings? Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more in-depth legal analysis. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.